Hello, AWE, Germany. It's so good to be back here. And, you know, I've been here before talking to you guys about how the world will see in 2020. I'm here today not to make puns, although that might happen. 2020, it's bad. It's only going to get worse. Today I want to talk about how the world is changing, how AR is changing the world right now in 2017. So if you've heard me talk before, you might know I'm the VP Evangelist at Meta, one of the leading augmented reality companies building the headset and, of course, the software, which a lot of us actually work in every day. So this was my childhood dream, and it's really come true. And last time I said that, last year, you know, I used the headset a couple of times a day, every day, to look at content here and there. That's not the case anymore. Now I literally live inside of augmented reality. I wear this thing all day, every day. My CEO, Marone, at TED in 2016 promised on stage we'd all throw away our monitors. Bloomberg reported on it, came into our office, followed us, and watched us do it for a week. It's real. It's happened. My 27-inch cinema display is gone, and I literally wear that thing every day, all day. And I have a holographic monitor floating above my desk. I have pictures of my girlfriend and I, like a Polaroid, sort of floating up there. I used to have a lot of Post-it notes on my monitor, so I literally now have an app on my phone where I can draw Post-it notes and pull them out and put them on my monitor, and it's covered in virtual Post-it notes. I have a bust of Steve Jobs on my desk to remind me sometimes you have to be a jerk. And of course, a Tesla Model 3 sitting there too, because I like that. So 6 months of work now, monitorless inside of the Meta, and I can tell you there's really no going back. I work with 3D content every day. If you email me and you send me a 3D file, I double-click it and it opens in 3D right in front of my eyes. And if I want to grab it and move it and rotate it, I can do that. It just works. And I use my hands. I don't need a controller. I don't need any kind of special input device. But if I want the precision of a mouse and a keyboard for a certain application, I can use that too. And this is what everybody gets right now with the Meta 2 that's shipping. My kids, who don't exist yet, they're not born yet, they're going to be very confused. They're going to say, Dad, what do you mean you used to sit all day in front of a box and the internet was stuck inside of it? That doesn't make any sense. The internet is all around us. This is going to happen so fast. You think the smartphone era happened fast? Just wait. It took about 8 years to get to this sort of point of incredible saturation. And now with AR, these things are moving at rapid speed. And it's not just happening in the headsets, of course. We know it's happening in the phones too, which is really driving the headsets. I'm really proud to say now that Meta is shipping to thousands of developers who are creating applications and tools and experiences that are paving the way towards a piece of hardware that's much closer to this, or the strip of glass that Marone promised on stage at TED. And in order to drive demand for this, we've got to have the killer applications built today. So this is about getting it into the hands of those devs. And there's a lot of pre-orders to get through. So if you have one and you haven't gotten it yet, it's coming soon. We're working as hard as we can to get them all out as fast as we can. The Meta 2 Dev Kit is the industry-leading optic with 90-degree field of view, 2.5K resolution, 60 frames per second, direct hand, and now this is new since last AWE, world tracking. So we're actually making a 3D map of the environment. If I were to drop something onto the table over there, it would actually hit the table. We also have occlusion from the environment, which is pretty incredible. There's also what I like to call slamming slam, because it's pretty slamming. It works incredibly well. If you've ever tried a Meta demo, what I can tell you is from whenever you last tried it, even if it was a month ago, it has dramatically improved. We're constantly getting better and better. The slam is getting tighter and tighter. The world locking is better than it ever has been. And that's what's happening with these constant updates to the SDK. So inside you have 2 mono cameras, which give you that 270-degree field of view you can almost see around your head, dual 6-axis IMUs, and that's what gives you that very accurate slam. And something that I'm also really excited to get to tell you today for the first time is that that 2-user collaboration where I see what you see what I see, will be officially in the SDK in early 2018. And I got to say thanks to our friends at Apple and Google, because we, since the introduction of AR Kit and AR Core, we have seen the largest number of new developers coming to us with incredible ideas, not just indie developers, but giant corporations who have figured out that now is the time for AR. These guys have said, you could build a business in this, go ahead and invest in it, and it's going to be worth your while. So that's really fueling the headsets and I think accelerating what we're all doing. We're also now Steam VR compatible, so you can download any Steam VR application and run it right inside of the headset, which is a pretty incredible feat. I've been able to take applications right off of there without having to make any modifications, and they just work. WebVR now works through Firefox, which is incredible. So I'm able to go, a site that's taken a lot of my time is Sketchfab. So I go on Sketchfab, find some of the millions of models they have on there, which are very high fidelity, very beautiful. I can just click on the model and it comes out of the screen, and I'm able to see it and hold it and rotate it and really see details that you can't on a traditional screen. So for anybody that works in 3D modeling, designing 3D models, consuming 3D models, it's already a killer application right now in 2017. If you're a web programmer and you don't quite know how to program in Unity or Unreal or any of the engines that are now supported, it doesn't matter because there's A-Frame. You can literally write with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and create holographic applications with those languages using WebVR through Firefox. There's also a really cool experience that was built for VR, but it just works because, again, WebVR is now supported. That's Dance Tonight, which is actually a project that Google did with LCD Sound System. Really cool. If you haven't checked it out, I would recommend it. We also now are supporting OS VR, which means Unreal works with Meta out of the box, all the major engines. So I told you guys that there's really cool things happening in 2017 right now with the headset, and this is absolutely one of the coolest. Can we get sound on this? So I'm going to go ahead and play this video for you. So I'm wearing Nikes for a reason here. It's because Nike is doing some absolutely stunning things with the Meta and really pushing the limits of what this thing can do and sort of reimagining how the whole design process for their shoes work. So they made this in collaboration with Dell, Meta, Nike, and Ultra Haptics for the mid-air haptics feedback.
It starts with a question.
Load women size 8.
Followed by an idea on how to make things simpler, better, or more beautiful.
Approximate shape from sketches.
But it's not just what it looks like.
Load cross-terrain sequence.
It's how it works. Which means trying. And failing. And trying again. To be a designer means not being bound by the limits of your tools, but instead,
Expand box.
being inspired by them.
Show me the upper.
So that you can focus on what only you can do. Being creative. Being curious. And being critical. Exploring the union between function and form. Until suddenly you know.
Optimize cushion pattern for terrain.
That's it.
And when you're ready to share your work, make sure everyone can see that the world is a little simpler, better, and more beautiful.
So those aren't just a bunch of After Effects sequences. This is actually built in Unity. Those tools exist in Unity, and some version of what's built there will end up actually deployed, and maybe some of you will get to play with it. So the SDK at this point is incredibly powerful. It's enabling things like what you just saw and more of what you're going to see. We also have the spatial interface principles. So Meta is not just about building a piece of hardware. Meta is also about building very tightly integrated software. We have the Meta Workspace, which is sort of our first, type of operating system. Today we call it an operating environment because it runs on top of Windows, kind of like how the first version of Windows ran on top of DOS, but ultimately it's a standalone OS. And when we're thinking about how to design for AR, it's not just copy and paste from the old paradigm into the new paradigm. It's really about figuring out how do we take advantage of our spatial sort of human nature versus the flat buttons and menus of the past paradigm of computing. So we have a neuroscience team, and we have a set of guidelines we call the Spatial Interface Principles, which you can see, they're freely available. If the whole industry copies them, the world will be a better place because we'll truly be able to improve the human experience. And that's what we're trying to do. It's not just AR for the sake of AR. So just to give you a little taste of what those are, things like think spatial, minimize abstractions, you are the OS, touch to see, do not disturb, avoid surprises and magic tricks, public by default, which is pretty controversial. It means you should see what I see, I should see what you see. Otherwise, we're all going to look like a bunch of crazy people waving our arms in midair with nothing there. And augmented, not mixed. And there's videos that go with each of these. I'm going to show you one quick video.
The first spatial interface principle is called think spatial. And it originates from this idea that in the past, because of the screen size limitation of older form factors, we've had to squeeze a lot of information into it, which means that we had to invent things like menus, buttons, icons, and pointers. However, in the real world, we don't use those things to interact with our environment. Instead, we place content, be it 2D or 3D, and tools spatially around us, around the users. So I can put my pens over here, my remote over here. Tools tend to be 3D. Why do we advocate that that's how we also build our 3D user interfaces in AR, with tools around and content around? It's because in 2011, Kravitz published in Nature Reviews Neuroscience that there are two pathways to the visual system. The first pathway starts in the retina, goes back to V1 and into the medial temporal lobe in the center here. That's the object recognition pathway. That handles questions of what am I looking at. Traditional operating systems have just been built for that one pathway. When I'm looking at icons and menus on my phone and abstract metaphors, I'm constantly object recognizing. But there's a second pathway. This pathway has been neglected by traditional computing interfaces, and it's called the how pathway. It starts in the retina, goes back, and now it travels on the top of the cortex. This pathway handles questions of where am I in my environment, how am I grabbing and interacting with the environment, and things like visual working memory. By spatializing information around us, we're engaging with that second pathway and making computing a lot more efficient because it's leveraging more of our innate wiring. Thank you.
So that was our CEO and founder, Marone. You may recognize him from the TED Talk. There's a whole series of videos like this that go into a lot of detail, and there's a lot more text, and there's citations of the sources for where this comes from as well. And we hope that we can build the most natural machine that's ever existed, something that works far closer to how the real world works than any digital device has ever worked before. And hopefully all of you can be inspired by that research and make your applications incredibly natural and intuitive for everyone to use. I recently had a little bit of a head injury. I bumped my head and I had to get an MRI and a CAT scan. And the doctor gave me a copy of my MRI as a picture. For anybody that knows what an MRI is, it's literally a 3D image. And there's these machines that cost millions of dollars that take these things. And unfortunately, most doctors are only looking at these from a couple of perspectives. So this next thing really means a lot to me because I was able to actually see my own brain. I asked my doctor if I could get the files from my MRI, and I was able to open those files thanks to this application, which is called virtual radiology. And this is real, shot through the headset. This is not my brain in particular. In this case, there's an iPad being used as a sort of companion device to control this particular scan. And you can turn up and down the density. But in my case, I talked to my doctor and I explained that I wanted the file so that I could look at my own brain and I could see what was going on with my head. And I explained to her that, hey, I'm going to open this in this sort of, holographic headset and I'm going to be able to see it, walk around it, and she was blown away. She said, oh my God, if this something that I could use. This would revolutionize the way that I practice and all doctors practice, and this could be the difference between a good diagnosis and a bad diagnosis. And her whole thing is that you can see way more information way faster than with the traditional images. So this is really exciting to the folks that I've talked to in the medical profession. And of course, you can grab it with your hands, you can rotate it around, you can use a mouse or a keyboard, or in this case, you can use the iPad companion app that the developers built. So this is one of those applications that is one of many medical applications being built on our platform. And I'm so blown away by some of the incredibly prestigious institutions who are using this. Some of the top research hospitals in the world are piloting these things now and doing incredible work with them, and you'll hear more about that soon. That was virtual radiology. So this is the part where now I share with you what I see through the headset here. So this is the Meta 2. And I'm just going to initialize the calibration here, do a little scan. So this is the SLAM. This is a really terrible environment for SLAM, so wish me luck. Hey, it worked. All right, that feels good. So I didn't have a chance to test this up here, so it's nice that it actually worked. What you're seeing is the Meta Workspace, and this is what's shipping to developers today. And you're seeing that, of course, I can walk around it, and I can just use my hands. So if I wanted to, let's say, grab a web browser, I can just pull out that web browser and launch it here. And the Wi-Fi is a little slow, but it does work. And I can scroll through with my hand, and of course use it like I would any traditional web browser. If I wanted to make it bigger, I could do that too. And now I have a very large screen. I can also replicate my Windows desktop, which I do sometimes, and I even cheat and I stream in my Mac desktop. This is a really beautiful image here. This is not, again, my brain. This is actually Adam Ghazali's glass brain from UCSF. This is one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen in holographic form. This is an fMRI of a brain, and I can walk around it. I can see it from any angle. I can even put my head inside of it, and I can see the neurons firing inside of there. So I can take that, put it back in my Meta Workspace. And of course, now I've got the whole world in my hands. All right, if you can make an audience in Germany laugh, you're pretty funny. So this, for education, is killer. This is a bee, which I can see to a level of detail I could never see from a textbook. I had one of the ministers of education from China say to me, "We have more students in my country than you have people in your country, and I believe wholeheartedly that within the next 5 years, all of my students are going to learn within augmented reality because they're going to learn faster and they're going to retain information better." When I look at something like this, and I think back to the science classes where you would look at the bugs under a magnifying glass, this is so much better than that ever could have been. When I look at things like photogrammetry and reconstructions, in this case, of a burial ground, this is really incredible. To me, it looks photorealistic, and I can walk around it. If I wanted to, of course, I can make it bigger. I could put it down lower, and it's pretty insane to see this sort of reconstruction just locked to the world like this. And imagine any kind of photogrammetry and just being able to double click it because FBX files, OBJ files just open right in the headset. If I wanted to, let's say, look at a chemical reaction, I think this is a pretty incredible way to see it, again, versus a traditional textbook or even a video on YouTube. I can leave that there. For 3D modeling or engineering, if you're building something very complex, something mechanical, and you want to really understand it, and maybe it's never even been built before, maybe you want to do it with your engineering colleague, the two of you wear a headset and you see from your own angles the engine, maybe you notice a certain part isn't quite right and you fix it before the thing actually goes into production. I've actually seen that happen a couple of times. where companies are using our headset for looking at things they're going to build, and they're actually able to discover sort of defects before they make the first prototype. If you're an interior designer, this is already a very killer application because you're used to building models of things, and for your clients to be able to see it this way really helps them understand in a way that they never really could from a traditional rendering. If you, this is one of my favorite things to look at. This eye is very creepy, very photorealistic. And this comes from Intervoke, another third party developing content on the platform. I'll show you something that has a lot of utility already. I'm not too good at anatomy. I don't remember too much from anatomy class, but I can learn right now just by looking at this body here, which comes from BioDigital. And with the tap of a button, now I've made the body transparent, and I can grab any part of the body out with my hand. Now I have the brain, and I can see all of the different parts of the brain, the left cortex, the right cortex. And I can take this, put it over here, grab the lungs, grab the heart. There it is. Eat your heart out. All right. Told you there were going to be bad jokes. So you can imagine as a learning tool, already incredibly, incredibly useful. If I was a designer at Nike, the ability to pull out an Air Jordan and look at that and see that life size or even bigger and walk around it and even stick my head inside of it, all totally possible. So that's why folks who are designing products are already going nuts for this stuff, because they're able to see this without ever having to 3D print a model. For the future of e-commerce, I forgot to wear my watch today, but I can try one on right now and decide if this is a good fit for me. I think it's a little big, so I'm going to put it back. Heart and lungs, this is a really crazy one too. The way that heart beats, the fidelity of this, incredible. And of course, the ability to very, very dexterously manipulate this, scale up and down, rotate. This is very easy to do. Anybody could try this and have this work within minutes for them. There's really no learning curve because it just works the way you would expect it to work. And of course, you got to have a little fun too, because you'd be, I think, a little dull without some fun in AR. So if the sound was on now, you'd be hearing this. This is actually an instrument that I'm playing, and every sort of quadrant is a different note. I'm really terrible at playing it, so it's probably better for your ears that you're not hearing it. What I'm trying to show you guys is not everything that this can do. I'm showing you that the possibilities are really limitless, and anything that you can open in 3D, you can open in this, any web page, any Windows application, anything you want to stream in from even your Mac. This is all stuff that I'm doing today every day of my life, working inside of this. It's quite robust. It is a dev kit, but this is the beginning of the first operating system in augmented reality. So I'm really glad to have gotten to share that with you. If you get a Meta 2, you get all of that and a whole lot more. So if you want a Meta 2, you can order one. They are $1,500, and if you jot down my email address, I have a special hookup that I can do only for a couple of days for you guys. There's a special carrying case that we made for our employees, and I can make sure you get one of those if you send me an email. So what I want to leave you with here is that 2018 is the year of the killer application. 2017 is the immersive augmented reality hardware finally out in the wild in the hands of people who have incredible ideas that they can finally bring to life and really augment reality. 2018 is when those ideas get traction and start to move hardware. And I'm incredibly, incredibly excited to see some of the things that I'm already seeing that we can't talk about quite yet come out and everybody see how impactful they are to the way that we work, to the way that we communicate, design, collaborate, even play, eventually shop, and learn. The way we learn is going to change so much, so fast. There's so much utility, even right now, thanks to folks like the BioDigital folks who made the body demo that I showed you earlier. So this is really important that this device gets out into the hands of all of you who have those incredible ideas that you want to make true, not just in a phone, which is a wonderful way to get started, but ultimately to actually see it in the world and have that as a collaborative experience with others. So thank you so much, AWE. Appreciate you having me.